Hello everyone, welcome back to Hands and Feet Homestead. I'm Rebecca, and today we are out in the garden just harvesting some of our bush beans, and I wanted to take you along with us today as we do some preserving. So this footage that I'm going to share is from the middle of August, and it was during the Three Rivers Homestead #EveryBitCounts challenge. At that point in time, my garden was still really behind from our late frost that we had, so I didn't have a whole lot coming in from the garden, but I did have little bits here and there, so I was able to go ahead and do some preservation projects, and I did one every day for 5 days, and I took some footage of that, and I wanted to bring you along and share that with you. We're going to be doing some fermenting, pickling, some dehydrating, and canning, and then also just with my garlic, I just wanted to get it trimmed and ready for long-term storage, so I counted that as a preservation project as well. So if learning about these different ways to preserve your food interests you, come along with us and see how we get this done. All of the recipes and the amounts of everything I use will be listed in the description box below. And feel free to skip ahead to any particular preservation project that interests you the most. So we're going to get started, and the first project that we are going to be doing is taking these green beans we've been harvesting and turning them into pickled green beans. So to get started with these pickled green beans, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need your green beans, some dill, some garlic. I like to add onion, that's optional, and then whatever seasonings you like, mustard seeds, black peppercorns, whatnot. Those are totally optional based on your preferences. Then you're going to want to trim your green beans, remove all of the stem ends, and you're going to want to blanch them in some boiling hot water for about 1 to 2 minutes, and then submerge them in a ice water bath. Then you want to get your brine ready, and you're going to be doing 2 cups of white distilled vinegar, that's a 5% vinegar, and 2 cups of water. And then you're going to add 4 teaspoons of salt and 1 teaspoon of sugar, and you're going to mix all those up. Then you're going to want to prep your garlic and your onions if you're using them. Just slice them up, and I like to just smash the garlic and put them in the bottom. We had some little baby garlic that I'm using up from the garden. Some were a smaller garlic head, so I thought this would be a great way to use it up in our preservation projects, and along with some really small onions that I was thinning out, so this was a good way to use them up. Make sure to remember to add whatever seasonings you're using to the bottom of the jar, like your black peppercorns or mustard seeds, and also adding a few bay leaves in it will help prolong the crunch of your green bean when in storage. Then you're going to take your blanched green beans and your dill, a few sprigs of dill, and just stick them all into your quart-sized mason jar. And those beans pretty much fit perfectly in a quart-size jar. In the meantime, you should have your brine coming to a simmer on your stove, and then you just top the whole thing off with your brine. And this is actually the same recipe I use for my refrigerator pickles, so you can use this for your cucumber harvest as well. And you just want to make sure your vegetables are completely submerged in the brine. Put a lid on it and stick it in the fridge, and that's it. I had a lot of dill left over from what I had purchased this dill, and I didn't want it to go to waste, so one thing that we like to do is freeze them in ice cube trays with olive oil, and I can pop these out and use them in our tzatziki sauce that we like to eat. You just let it defrost into the tzatziki sauce because it already calls for oil and dill in it, so that's a great way to use that. I'm sure you could find other ways to use it as well. And you could use this to preserve other herbs as well, such as parsley or basil would be a good one. And they just pop right out of the tray using like a butter knife. They come out pretty easy, and then you can store them in plastic freezer bags, and you can just take them out one at a time as needed. So day 2 of the preservation project is here, and I'm going to be making a version of sauerkraut. I've made a separate video completely dedicated to making this recipe, and I will link that down below. But you basically just follow the same guidelines you would as regular sauerkraut, except we're going to be adding in some shredded carrots, some shredded onions, and garlic, and I'm going to add a little bit of oregano into it as well. But you make it the same way. You want to slice your green cabbage up pretty thin. I didn't have any cabbage in my garden, but I've had these in my fridge I've been meaning to use up, and I did harvest some small onions from my garden a couple weeks ago, and also I had thinned out a bunch of carrots, so I had these little tidbits to use up from my garden harvest, so I figured that the sauerkraut would be a good way to make use of that. So you're just going to want to slice up your onions and then get your carrots washed and peeled, and then just use a cheese grater to get nice thin slices. I am just using a handful of these baby carrots because they were thinned carrots from the garden, but usually around 2 large carrots that you'd buy from the store would be sufficient. And then I had some small heads of garlic that I harvested from the garden that I wanted to get used up in recipes, and so just go ahead and get those minced very finely and then add that to your bowl. And here I did about a teaspoon of dried oregano that I had dehydrated from last year, and that is all of the ingredients. You can add some red pepper flakes if you'd like to add a little bit more spice to it. And then that brings us to figuring out how much salt to add. I like to just do a calculation, so I weigh the amount of my ingredients, and then I take 2% of the weight of that in grams, and then I just weigh out the salt in grams into my mixture, and then you go ahead and get it all nice and worked in with your hands, and then using one of these tampers to just kind of tamp down and beat down onto the cabbage, and it helps release all the juices. So you can take your time doing that. You'll see the water starting to form. Before you start doing all of that, it's good after you just mix it in with your hands to just let it sit for about 15-20 minutes, and it'll just speed up the process of letting the juices come out. And then you're gonna want to just put them into your jars, and then again use your little tamper to tamp it down. I ended up only using 1 quart jar here. It wasn't quite enough to make 2 quarts with the amount of cabbage that I was using, but again, I'll put the correct amounts all in the description box below. Make sure the juice is, the brine is coming up over your vegetables. That's the important part to make sure that your ferment doesn't go bad. So I like to use these glass fermenting weights and then a fermentation lid and put a ring on it. And that's all there is to it. You just let it sit out on your countertop at room temperature for about 7 days and give it a taste. See if it's fermented to your liking, and then just put a regular lid on it and store it in your refrigerator. Okay, here we're on day 3 of the preservation projects, and I'm going to be doing some dehydrated zucchini squash, and we are going to be turning it into a powder as well. This is my favorite way to preserve zucchini because you basically turn it into a flour, and then you can use that in all of your baking recipes. You can sub it out completely and use it as like a gluten-free flour. You don't even have to use regular flour with it, or you can sub out half or whatever amount you like to do in your recipes, but I'm still experimenting with different recipes with it. I recently just made a brownie recipe using 100% zucchini flour with no regular gluten flours in it. And I was so impressed with the texture of it and the way it turned out, and the kids loved it. It was a really tasty dessert, and they got some zucchini in the deal with their dessert. So that was pretty cool. I'd like to experiment with more recipes and adding it into muffins and things like that. But anyway, it's very simple. You just basically, I find shredding your zucchini with a cheese grater to be the easiest way to do this. So just shred it all up and then get it on your dehydrator trays. The process is the same whether you're using zucchini or yellow squash or even pumpkins or butternut squash from your garden. That all works too. I would suggest doing zucchinis and yellow summer squash. You can just blend all those together. And I would do a separate pumpkin powder if you were going to be doing that as well. Here I'm using some squash that was given to me by a friend. Our garden has been very behind this year because of our frost, and somebody has been graciously gifting me some from her garden. And I'm not really sure what this variety is of this squash, but I was eating it like a yellow squash, but it does look a little bit different than a normal summer squash. But I put it in with the zucchini here. So once you get your dehydrator trays loaded up, just set it at 135 degrees and check it after about 8 hours. And if it still needs to dry longer, set it for a little bit longer and just keep checking it until it's completely dry and brittle. And then this is the leftover squash I have from dehydrated from my garden last year that I have in shreds still. So I'm going to be putting it into my blender and blending it up into a fine powder, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is what it looks like after it's all blended up. It's just a nice squash flour, and as I said, you use it like you would normal flour. So if you're using this to sub out regular flour, if you're subbing out 1 cup of flour, you would replace that with just 1/3 cup of this zucchini flour. That's what it equals. So that's a great way to use up your zucchini from your garden, because usually people are swimming in zucchini. So this is my favorite way to do that. Okay, that brings us to day 4, and I decided to get my garlic that I have had curing inside prepped and ready for long-term storage. So basically, after you harvest your garlic out of your beds, you let them cure for 2 to 3 weeks, just laying out on a wire rack or a plastic rack like I had, just with good airflow. And now it's time to get them all trimmed up and ready. So it's good to get all the extra dirt off of it. So using a nice soft brush like this is really helpful. And then you just want to trim off the roots and then just trim off the stem on the top. And then you're left with the little garlic bulb right there. And add it to your pile. And it's as simple as that there's really not a lot to it. And I just finished up the rest of them. It was on my list of things to do, and I was glad I could get that done today. So that was all my hard neck garlic that I had. And then I did have some soft neck garlic that I'm working with here, but there was only maybe like 8 of them. And the stems kind of broke off the top of them, so I couldn't even braid the few that I had. But in the future, I hope to get more soft neck garlic and be able to braid those and store them that way. So day 5 of the preservation projects, I was going to make some raspberry strawberry jam from my garden berries. So I'm getting my water bath canner started here, just filling it with water and getting it heated up while I prep everything else. I've been so excited to make this because I've been saving up berries from our own garden, and I've had the honey here is from what we harvested from our own bees from last year. So this whole jam that we're doing here is all completely homegrown, and I've been wanting to do that so bad. So I was so excited about that, which brings me to my point of why I'm using Pomona's Pectin in this. Which Pomona's Pectin, if you don't know what that is a pectin that allows you to use low sugar or sugar alternatives like honey, and it'll still set up the way a normal jam does. Because if you've ever done jam with normal pectin, you know how much sugar that they call for in those recipes. It's like 8 cups of sugar that you're adding in, and these are my homegrown berries, and I felt a little sad about adding that much sugar to my homegrown berries. So I was so happy to get Pomona's Pectin and give it a try. I tried it out on some store-bought frozen berries that I had bought, and I wanted to make sure everything went well and we liked it and it was awesome. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use it on my homegrown stuff here. So that's what we're doing here today. When you buy your Pomona's Pectin, it comes with instructions on how much of everything to add and when to add it. But basically up to this point, I added my berry puree that I had. I added the calcium water in the correct amounts that it called for into that, and you get that all mixed up and then get that heated. And while that's heating, you want to put your honey in a bowl, and then you're going to sprinkle your Pomona's Pectin on top of the honey and then mix that in really, really well. Then once your puree and calcium water are up to a boil, then you want to go ahead and add your honey and pectin mixture into your boiling puree, and then you want to keep stirring very vigorously for a couple of minutes and wait for your mixture to come back up to a boil. And once it is up to a boil again, you want to take it off the heat and remove it from the heat. And then you're ready to start ladling them into your jars. So when you're ladling your jam into your jars, you want to leave about a 1/4 inch headspace. And if any of you are new to canning, I would really recommend getting a Ball Complete Guide to Canning book. And I'll link any resources or tools that I find helpful for any of these projects. I'll link those in the description box below. And there's tons of videos that will walk you through every step-by-step process of the whole thing. But it's a very simple process. If you've never water bath canned before, it's so easy, and it's really not, it might seem intimidating at first, but it's really not at all. So you just go ahead and ladle your hot jam into your hot jars, leaving a 1/4 inch headspace from the top. And after they're all filled, I like to wipe the rims off with a paper towel, and I like to soak it in a little bit of white vinegar. That helps get any grease off that might keep it from sealing when you are processing them. Then just put your lids and rings back on your jars and then put them back into the canner. And process these 8-ounce jars according to your elevation. For me, that is 15 minutes where I'm at. And that's all there is to canning your own jam with Pomona's Pectin. I didn't include the amounts in the voiceover for this today, but I will write them in the description box below. And like I said, if you buy your Pomona's Pectin, it comes with everything you need, the calcium water, the pectin, and everything, and it tells you whether you need to add lemon juice and the amounts of everything, and it's very clear and easy to follow. So here's the final product. I got 6 8-ounce jars of homemade jam, homegrown and homemade, and this is what it looks like when it is all done. And as you can see, it's jammed up and firm and a beautiful jam, and I was so happy with how it turned out. Well, that's it for our preservation projects for the past 5 days. I hope this was helpful to you in inspiring you to come up with ideas on how to use your garden harvests. And even if you aren't able to grow a garden at this time, it's a good time to practice on produce that you buy organically from the store, or even farmers markets is even better. And you can learn how to do these things before you are able to grow your own garden. So thank you so much for watching. Please give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and hit the subscribe button, and leave me a comment below. What are your favorite ways to preserve your garden produce? I love hearing from you, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care and God bless.